Good day, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the CEO Mastermind.ai podcast. I have someone turned being a fanboy of Phil, having now been in the same room with him multiple times, part of the same mastermind community called Epic Community. I cannot tell you how excited I am about this. I absolutely adore Phil, his work, and him as a man. Just a gentleman in every sense of the word. And he kind of knows what he's talking about. He hasn't sold 10,000 books, 100,000 books. Shit, he hasn't even sold a million, the poor guy. He's sold over 2.5 million books. And I think for me, when I first read your book several years ago, Phil, and I'll get you to introduce yourself for a moment, I've always been a good communicator and connect with people. But your opening line really changed my perspective when I go talk with people. And I'll read it for the audience because I'm going to put everything in the show notes. We're not going to cover his life's work in just 45 minutes, but we're going to cover a few topics. But the worst time to think about the thing you are going to say is the very moment you are saying it. And not often are words so profound when you start to read a book, but that really made me think, am I being purposeful? Am I being choiceful? Am I looking for alignment? And so, today's conversation, we're going to talk about the use case and the psychology behind some of his quote unquote magic words. He has 26 of them in his book called Exactly What to Say. But I really want this to be a teaser to have you as the audience really dive into this body of work. I've read this book. I can't tell you how many times I've highlighted it. I've got dog ears. I'm actually on the second book, and I have your limited edition. But it's really one of the most powerful things you can use. So welcome, Phil. Really appreciate your time, and your contribution to the world of communication.
Thanks, sir. It's a pleasure to be here.
For the audience, can you just give us a quick rundown on your journey and how you really got into talking about magic words? How you kind of started your journey with that 10 plus years ago.
Absolutely. I mean, this has been my life's work, continues to be my life's work. And I didn't realize it was even my life's work when I first got started with it. And I've been in business since a very young age. I've been in business since I was 14 years of age. And I started knocking on the doors of my neighbors, asking if they wanted their cars washed. And it taught me the power of asking for the things that you want in your life and how you can make more happen just by simply asking. And I built a fairly successful small business as a kid, so much so that by the age of 15, I wasn't going to school as often as I should because I had customers that needed servicing and staff that needed direction and was making more money than the bulk of my school teachers. So I continued to build businesses through my teens. And then at the age of 18, was offered a position in a large department store retail group in the UK, where I was responsible for leading significant sizes of teams of people. So sales leadership role at 18, 19, 20, 21 is an interesting role to be in because you get a lot of prejudice back based on your age and the way that you look like. And when you're trying to lead people that are often double your age. And I learned real quickly that I couldn't lead people through the lens of me telling them what to do. What I could look at is I could look at people that are trying to do something better. And then I could find the person who's the best in the business at that thing. And I could study the person who's the best at the business at that thing. And instead of me saying, hey, David, what I think you should do is, I'd be saying, hey, I've been watching Stu and the way that he does things. And you and I both know that Stu's the best in the business at blank. There are 3 things that Stu does that you might want to think about doing yourself that could help you get better results in that area. It became my way of being able to share insights with others, was studying the behavior of top performers. And from studying top performer after top performer after top performer after top performer, I realized that there were some commonalities as to what it was that made them a top performer. It wasn't just hard work and endeavor and product knowledge and hustle. It wasn't just a commitment to be able to do a good job. It was in the moments that matter. Almost all of them had efficiencies in their word choices. They were leaning on the same sequence of words on repeat, on repeat, on repeat, on repeat for high stakes moments. They were giving considerations to repackage information that otherwise was complex to other people into a more simple format, so it was more consumable, it was more digestible. They were obsessive about having efficiencies within their language. And many of them didn't know that they were. It was just their coping mechanism of being able to deal with repetitive moments on repeat. This fascinated me. What I then started to see was patterns in that language, patterns in that language, patterns in that language. So fast forward to sort of 2009, 2010, 2011, I'm running my own training, coaching, consulting business. And it didn't matter whatever I taught people. I'd always be giving them a leave behind, like a 1-page, a 2-sheet, a takeaway document, and I'd fill it full of magic words, precise sequences of language that would help them in that precise scenario. And when I'd meet people long after that fact, they wouldn't remember the principles of what I taught them. They'd all remember the magic words. And they'd say things still using those magic words, still using those magic words, still using those magic words. So this became just part of the cream on the top of the cake in my consulting business, was providing precise language to help people navigate some of their most critical conversations. Fast forward to 2017, need to write a new book. Instead of writing a new book, what did I do? I went back and I rewrote the body of work that I created in magic words. I rewrote it as exactly what to say and brought that to market. This was continuous refinement from road testing this work through dozens and dozens of different industries. Fast forward to today, I've now trained over 800 different industries around how they can be more persuasive and influential in their language. Trained more than 2 million people across 59 different countries. The little tiny book has reached nearly 3 million people, and I believe that the answer to every question, the solve for every puzzle in the world that is causing us a challenge right now is, if more people could find the right words at the right time, we'd live in an insanely better place. So my life's work is dedicated to helping people level up the conversations that matter in their life.
Absolutely. And just for the audience, you may not be able to see, but the book is little. It could probably fit in the back pocket of your jeans. You can carry it around. I mean, it's
Funny.
it is little, but it's really one of the best works. And just before we were on this recording, I was telling Phil about how I shared the book with my daughter. She has to read through it, but I told her a few phrases. And, of those phrases, she, as you can all imagine, retail associates, they get incentives for selling products, but they get more incentives when they sell the MasterCard or the Visa. And we all know them, we walk into them. And she went working there for 3 months, not selling one, not really trying very hard, but also not selling one and getting discouraged, to taking some of the tips that I taught her through this book, to go from 0 in 3 months to 4 in a week. And she only works, 10 to 12 hours a week. And, she's still a high school student. So this stuff really works. And if someone says, oh, I'm too old or I'm too young, what I love about what you talk about here, and I'll dive into a couple examples, is that it is universal. In one of the earlier podcasts in this series, we talked about how sales is a superpower. And oftentimes the word sales is sometimes seen as a dirty word because you're pressuring someone into something. That is exactly what it is not. And I think the approach that you take is what it is. It's about finding alignment and purpose and fit and congruence, and the way you present your question, you can peel back the truth, because you can't be everything to everybody. And your product, one product or service cannot solve everyone's product. And sometimes it's okay to say, actually, maybe this is not a fit. And I think using these line of questioning and unearthing low pressure, I think it's brilliant. And I echo the sentiment. Like, I literally use your stuff word for word. There's a whole bunch of things you've talked about at the Epic group that I write down and I use. Before I get to some of the ones in the books, can you talk a little bit about, would you be opposed to, that one I've used, I've used that one quite a bit. Can you talk a little bit about that one and its use case and purposes?
I think there are many applications of different word choices, and the would you be opposed to is actually being built out of Chris Voss's body of work, from what I understand as well. And would you be opposed to is allowing somebody to only choose that if they have a strong negative connotation towards definitely not. If you think about decision making is hard. Anything you can do to make decision making easier for people is a gift to them. And outside of saying to somebody, would you be opposed to, sometimes you might want to give somebody options. So what you could say to somebody is, the way I see it is you have 3 options. The second you say to somebody, the way I see it is you have 3 options, they go, this is no longer such a big, overwhelming obstacle for me to work with. I have simple choices. And you can present people with 3 options that aren't necessarily even equally weighted. If this was as simple as a cup of coffee, I could say you've got 3 options. You've got small, medium, or large. Now, that doesn't necessarily help somebody. But I could say the way I see it is you have three options. It's you could grab a small, that's only $3, and that might give you the shot that you're looking for in the arm. You can grab a medium, that's $4.75. It doesn't seem to be worth the extra, when a large is going to give you all the caffeine you could probably dream of, and it's only $5. Out of those three options, which one do you think is going to fix that caffeine fix for you quickest? Right? You can steer people in a different direction should you look to be able to choose to, by limiting the number of options. So when you say to somebody, would you be opposed to? It's quite hard for them to say, yes, I would be opposed to. So through process of deduction, they're like, no, I wouldn't be opposed to. Take that as simple as like, what's for dinner? One of the hardest questions in the world to be able to navigate is, what would you like for dinner? What would you like for dinner? I could say like, I'm thinking like, I'd love Chinese food. And you could say, well, I'm thinking like I want Thai food, and we could be in debate forever. Whereas I could say, hey, would you be opposed to Chinese food? It's a lot harder to show up in opposition than it is to create full acceptance. So the story math adds up in your favor.
Yeah, and for those in the audience, that's number 9, magic word number 9 in his book. You have three options. Because I've used a combination of those. Would you be opposed to 1, 2, or 3? Because people are sometimes will have their resistance up, so they'll naturally want to say no.
Yeah.
But I think when you articulate it that way, it pauses them to actually. I found people stopping to think, because the natural inclination of something, you can see in my experience. I've seen the gerbils, I've seen the brain go.
Yeah.
And then you get one of the three answers, or they say, well, actually, no, yeah, tell me more.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. I'll go back to number 1. This one's great. I'm not sure if it's for you, but
yeah,
that's about curiosity and lowering resistance. And can we expand on that a little bit?
Of course you can. I mean, you know as well as I do that if you do not ask, you do not get. We also know that your success in life is in direct correlation to the quantity of quality asks that you make in your life. Yet still, the majority of people inside your business are not asking for the things they want in life because they are fearful of rejection. So if you can help people ask for things with more confidence by giving them rejection-free opening formulas, where they can ask just about anybody, just about anything, and remove the option of no, they're going to more freely ask for the things they want in life. Just like when you say, would you be opposed to? If I said, I'm not sure if it's for you, but when I say I'm not sure if it's for you, your little voice firstly says, well, I'll be the judge of that. And the second thing your little internal voice says is like, what is it? Curiosity is piqued. You're leaning in. You're wanting to understand more about it. And then the word but just shifts the focus to next. So if I wanted somebody to look at something from an alternative point of view, I could say, look, I'm not sure if it's for you, but there's an opening coming up in a new division, and I thought you might be a great fit. Or I could say, I'm not sure if it's for you, but we're planning a trip this weekend, and I wondered if you'd be open-minded to joining us. Or I could say, I'm not sure if it's for you, but many clients in your situation would also include this with that purchase. You see, it allows us to be more playful and flirtatious. And your daughter could use this in a MasterCard scenario and say, look, I'm not sure if it's for you, but you could save 10% today by completing a simple one-page form.
Plain, simple, and powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was another pearl of wisdom with what you opened up with on that one, was the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the amount of asks that you make.
That's right.
And when you had first said that, I think I heard that about three, whenever it was, I don't remember, but it really got me thinking, because I have too been guilty. Humans inherently don't like rejection, and you always want stuff, but there's always, for whatever reason, even in a highly trained professional like myself, you might be afraid to ask, but the answer is always no. Cliche, Gretzky, going where the puck is, not where it's going, not where it is. But I think it's really important that this book helps you make those asks. And so that's what I want the audience to come across, was using these tools and understanding them quite literally help change your world. Right.
That's right.
And there's only one way we communicate in this world. We don't grunt, we don't bark, we don't whistle. We're not whales. We talk, we use words, we communicate. Certainly different languages, but how many languages in this now? You have it in
30 something.
All the major
30 something.
Yeah. So you're now around the world, and I think your life's work it has empirically improved mine in multiple areas in terms of the way to frame things and the way to get even the way it gets you thinking on how you're going to approach like your opening sentence. The worst time to think about is when you're about to say it, right? And
Right.
it's really critical. I'm going to move on to number two. Um, I love this one. How open-minded are you? So the psychology around that, what I like it is, the way I take it is it makes people, no one wants to say that they're closed-minded.
Correct.
Right? It's inherently from a psychological perspective. They don't want to say, you know, no, I'm closed-minded. Some people are, sure, and they'll admit it. But I would reckon, I think in your book, you said of 1,000, 90 plus 5%, whatever the number was, would say, I'm open to it for sure.
Yeah.
Let me hear. What did like what feedback have you heard or other use cases that's been powerful or share a story and how that one came to be?
Okay. Well, the principles behind this is that the whole world likes to see themselves as open-minded. When you take that fact that the whole world likes to see themselves as open-minded and you apply it to a principle that the person asking the questions is in control of the conversation, you can develop rejection-free opening formulas by asking questions like, how open-minded would you be? Or would you be open-minded? It becomes a freer way of being able to make an ask of people. You'd use a how open-minded question when you're looking to start a discussion, and you'd use a would you be open-minded question when you're looking to create a decision. So it's like discussion versus decision. But its application is plentiful. In fact, you could use it with the exact same sequence of words that we just talked about. You could say, I'm not sure if it's for you, but how open-minded would you be to? You see how it softens an ask? It allows you to be pulley and not pushy. Even if I'm a leader, I can say to somebody like, hey, like, how open-minded would you be to working a few extra hours this week? Or how open-minded would you be to taking on more responsibility? Or how open-minded would you be to helping me complete XYZ project? It's very different than, I really need your help with X. It's very different than, hey, are you available for some extra hours? You see how there's potential rejection, potential rejection, potential rejection. If you can present an idea to somebody that they can receive it and take it, like you put it out there and let them carry the rest of the distance, then guess what? Like it becomes a safer place to converse. Even with an underperforming team member, you could say, how open-minded would you be for us to find some time together this week for us to talk about your current performance? It's better than, I need to speak to you this week. Rejection. Pushback.
Create more tension. You said a key word in there, being a leader of an organization myself, and a lot of talking with HR professionals. This whole concept, you said the key word of safety.
Yes.
And, this whole essence of psychological safety and creating a safe environment, if you will, for communication.
Yes.
Do you find my experience as a lot of quote unquote salespeople don't create those conditions? And so what have you seen are some of the most common mistakes that salespeople make when they're trying to, close a deal? And I'm sure there's multiple. I don't know if you have two or three that come up to the top of your head, but what you said there around safety triggered me down that road in terms of the common mistakes that people make. Whether it's a real estate agent, I know you have a book for real estate. At the end of the day, you replace the word with widget.
Yeah.
The principles are all the same.
If I was to look at this as 5 big mistakes, number 1 would be rushing. Is when they're in a conversation with somebody trying to help that person to make a decision, people rush. A simple example would that be is a sales associate in a store, in a department store, is somebody like picks an item up off a rack and asks the question about that item, and instantly the sales associate rushes into like, oh, that one's been really popular, or that one would look good on you, or yeah, that one's been like a highlight of the season, or that was one of my favorites too. Like they're rushing a piece of information in that may or may not be relevant. It may or may not help. And by trying to rush a transaction to a finish line, that's very costly. Behind rushing is showing up and throwing up.
Yeah.
What do I mean by that is that you get an opportunity to better help somebody in the decision-making process, and you think your job is to pitch. You think your job is to deliver a presentation. You think your job is to tell them as much as you know about that subject. That's an expensive mistake to make, because it often leads in that third big mistake, which is that you give people too much information to make a decision. You create overwhelm. The job is to give people enough information to make a decision. Too much information is a bad thing. The reason you do this is because of the fourth big mistake, which is not listening. You think that being successful at selling is delivering a monologue. Who's got the best pitch? Who's got the best presentation? And you fail to engage these superpower tools, which are your ears. And by doing that, it often results in the fifth big mistake is that you make assumptions. And any assumption in the sales process is likely to be costly. You're making an assumption if you're saying things like, I think that what you should do is this, or my belief is blank. The way to stop making assumptions is to only ever make recommendations when you can say, because of the fact that you said. Because of the fact that you said that what you're looking for is blank, 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 and blank. For those reasons, what I'd recommend is blank. Because the reason you shouldn't make assumptions is the same reason you shouldn't make assumptions in the medical practice. Because in the medical industry, they say that prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. Same thing is true in a sales environment. If you're explaining to somebody that you've got the latest and greatest widget or whatnot, without understanding what that person's purpose would be for said widget and whatnot, you are guessing, assuming, hoping, praying, wishing for success. Slow the process down, you speed the outcome up. So that would be for me, don't rush, don't show up and throw up, don't deliver too much information, don't not listen, and then also don't make assumptions.
So I love that framework. Lord knows I have been guilty of that, particularly a couple of those. Having been, I'll speak about myself, having been a type A type person, always want to get high grades and show how much I know. I definitely have been, my nickname in grade 8 was M&M and not for the candy. It was Motor Mouth, because I'd love to show and talk too much. One of the things I have focused on, particularly as I've become more senior, not in age, but in career and business leadership, is focus and simplicity. I think a lot of that is around that, but you've said it, or I remember you saying it, or at least this is when it's stuck in my mind. A confused buyer doesn't buy, right? And so I think these things lead to, oh shit, I don't know, and they just put their hand up. Yeah, there's no clarity. The source of all, lack of clarity is a source of a lot of problems, right? You had a 3-part framework we talked about a couple of years ago, which was it was context before
context before content is merely noise. If you're looking to be more influential in any conversation, start curious till you reach empathy, and then have the courage to make a big bold ask. The reason we start curious is because curiosity earns us context. Demonstrating empathy makes you relatable. Only once you've demonstrated empathy should you have the courage to invite people to take action. Curiosity, empathy, courage. If you're wondering how to sequence your questions, curious questions, empathetic questions, courageous questions. Because curious questions give you context, empathetic questions show you're relatable, courageous questions drive action.
Perfect. Yeah, that was, I remember when you talked about that, and you went on for quite a bit. And what I know I have done as well, and I've seen it done, is where people put everything in front of you. So all the content before the context, right? And they're not building up, to your point. And you sort of lose the sale, but you lose an opportunity to, if you believe you have a product or service to help somebody, I think it's an ethical way to see, can you actually help them? But if you're focused on the commission, that's the wrong, it's always, the money comes later, right? That's the byproduct of success, I think. And I think too many people equate sales with money, and it certainly drives money. It would, makes the world go round, but I think it's about the essence of relationships and strengthening those, which is the entire body of work is all about. So
100%.
I also like the one that you talk about, most people. Can you talk a little bit about the power of social proof and how that tees up the psychological triggers to say that most people
if we take a very basic psychological viewpoint, is that human beings are a lot like sheep. We're very happy to follow a crowd. Safety in numbers is something that gives us confidence in decision making. Is if 100 people took a decision before us and it worked out fine for them, we're highly likely to be able to follow that path. So safety in numbers is for real. The other thing to give consideration is there are many moments where you're looking to be able to tell somebody what to do without them feeling like they're being told what to do. Because they want to know what to do, but they don't want to feel pressured or pushed. They simply want to be led. So next time you want to tell somebody what to do, you simply share with them, here's what most people would do in your circumstances. And for many, that would mean that it would kick up a voice inside their head that says, aha, I'm most people. If that's what most people would do, then I would choose to be able to do the same thing too. Sure, this requires some emotional intelligence because there are a number of people out there in the world that would be like, I am not most people. So you have to understand who are the people that are either side of that line, but it can split 95-5 in almost any moment. And if you were speaking to somebody who definitely does not associate with being like most people, then what I would say to utilize that same sequence of words is I would say, don't be like most people.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Just like that. Mm-hmm.
Like, don't be like most people and think that the only way you're going to grow your income is waiting for next year's pay rise and next year's pay rise and next year's pay rise and next year's pay rise, and that's going to get you what you want in life. Yeah. Instead, be one of the exceptions and do the work that is beyond what it is that you're currently being asked to do so you can get paid for the role that you'd like to be able to deliver in the future. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what I'm doing is I'm using through association, allowing people to choose in. And the label most people is just as applicable to other labels that you could use when getting people to select a style of behavior. Because I could say most people, or I could also say many people, few people, some people, almost nobody, next to everybody. Mm-hmm. And what am I doing is I'm creating groupings so that people can allow themselves to see themselves in.
Yeah, because to your point earlier, we're quite, I don't know if the word is tribal, but again, we like to be part of something.
We like to be part of a collective, right? We like to associate ourselves with something. So if you can attach the belief that you're looking for somebody to borrow for themselves to an existing belief that they have, the chance of it carrying in that direction is significantly higher. And it's for these reasons why I feel very, very strongly about, in this fast-paced world with accelerating levels of artificial intelligence, there is also a requirement for accelerated and hyper-focused levels of emotional intelligence. The ability to read moments, the ability to be able to understand the emotional distress that somebody else might be in, the ability to slow things down and give consideration to the internal drivers that could be existing in the very human decision-making process of other people. And this is where I'm seeing my work enter into new dimensions. This isn't about helping to close sales. This isn't about helping to close deals. This isn't about looking for witty one-liners that increase levels of conversion. This is about how to be strategically more curious, to ask more intelligent questions, to create safer spaces for people to be able to communicate. This is about allowing humans to have more effective and emotive conversations with other humans so that what they can do is that they can amplify levels of trust. They can create environments in which difficulties can be discussed with progress and growth and opportunistic futures. I'm very much enjoying the challenge of utilizing principles that were once upon a time used to help people buy car washing services or amplify the benefits of their furniture transactions, or to sell speeches, or to help develop training programs, but instead to help the world become a better place. That's where my work is leaning towards next.
I think that makes a lot of sense because as much as I love AI and as much as I love technology, I think the age of the expert, if you will, if you said templates or whatnot, sure, that's going to be part of it. But I think the differentiator going forward is what you said. It's about having those connections and having an emotive conversation where the emotional intelligence, because the differentiation of IQ is becoming less, if we're honest, because we have things to replace. But the differentiator has always been EQ.
That's right.
I think now it's even been more amplified to your point. So in terms of learning the cues and uncovering, using some of these approaches to create that safe space and that emotion. I mean, I totally love that. Before we depart and talk about, where people can find you, some of the things you're working on, one of the last ones that I want to talk about is, I also think it's a very powerful one. And whether you're a product-based business or service-based business, is the power of referral. Right, the power of referral is, an age-old word of mouth, and and how to use the word a favor. Right. Sure. Can you talk about some circumstance around that? Because I find that simple, but yet wildly powerful.
I think there are many moments where we would like to ask for somebody else's help, but the help that we're looking for might feel like it's too big of an ask. The jump from I'm not in conversation to can you help with blank feels like it's too big of a leap. So putting a simple ask ahead of the bigger ask and getting the buy-in for the simple ask ahead of time gives you permission to then ask the bigger response. So what I would be looking to be able to do is I would be looking to simply request to somebody that they could do you a small favor. And if I said to you, David, right now, I said, is there any chance you could do me a small favor? There's a high probability you'd say yes to that. Having said yes to that, then what I can do is put the bigger ask behind it. It can be used for referrals. It can be used for reviews. It can be used for a variety of different tools, a variety of different moments. But it certainly sure does give you the ability to ask for more. So the words of favor allow us to be able to get people to agree to take an action before we've asked them what the action would be. And if you're wondering on the best timing to ask somebody for a favor, just simply wait for moments of gratitude. When people say thank you to you, it's a great time to be able to ask them for more. Why? Because not only are they grateful, they have inward feelings of indebtedness as well. They feel like they owe you in some way. And there are always extra things that we can ask for.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that, because I have used that, would you mind doing me a small favor? And, 9 times out of 10, most people don't say no, as long as you're not asking for a majority. But I've started using that, and again, it's one of the ones that I love. Your body of work is awesome. I think it's really powerful, and I thank you for that. As we wrap, if you can tell the audience a little bit, what you're working on next, and talk a little bit about your certification program. I'm coming down to New York in November. If you can kind of talk about that and what people accomplish out of that, I'd like to make sure the audience knows that how they can dive in deep with you and your work.
You've got it. I mean, we are committed to helping people level up their conversations in all areas of life. And this means that everything we're building within Exactly What to Say is going bigger than the book, going beyond the book. And now I have 37 licensed and certified partners that are training their work in a variety of different environments. We have the ability for people to go deep with the work personally, which is what you've just mentioned here. And twice a year, I run small group certification programs for leaders and entrepreneurs that want to understand the full curriculum and its application in their life as a leader, in their life as a sales professional, in their life as a human as well, so that they can be more intentional about the language they stick into. We are building out exactlywhattosay.com as being a treasure trove of resources to help people be more intentional about the language and how they can utilize it for good in a more appropriate way. We launched Exactly What to Say as role play cards to help people elevate their practice when putting the words into practice. And much of my goal is to help people to stop thinking that the words are magic and start realizing the principles that live behind the word so they can live with more intent and go on to learn that every word that leaves your mouth is helping or hurting. Nothing is neutral. Every word that leaves your pen, your keyboard, is helping or hurting. Nothing is neutral. And invite people to be more intentional with their language, because there isn't a finite number of opportunities. There's an infinite number of opportunities for us to be able to impact those of others. And I wish leaders would stop counting their conversations in their business and instead start making more of those conversations count.
That really sent goosebumps what you just said, in particular around that there's nothing neutral. It's either furthering or taking away. And as a leader myself, on glass half full, I too have room to make forward on that. So I think that's really profound.
We all do. We all do.
We all do. And I think, wow, that really stuck. As usual, you always drop pearls of wisdom that stick. And I think what you said is about the frameworks and the understanding of it. And at the end of the day, humans are good. We all want good things, great relationship. We get tied up in the world and whatnot. But I really love what you just said around, nothing's neutral. It's either you're helping or you're harming. I really love that nuance. And so I'll put all the links in the show notes, philjones.com. Easy to find Exactly What to Say, Phil Jones. You find everything there. I also love the video book that you do with Lit. There's multiple, people learn different ways, whether they read, whether they listen, or
we have
whether they
hundreds
watch.
of points of access to this work. And I think, if you go searching for either Exactly What to Say or search for me, but go Phil M. Jones. There's quite a lot of Phil Joneses in the world, but there's only one Phil M. Jones. So look to be able to explore the conversation from there. And if people want to explore the conversation with me directly, come find me on LinkedIn or come holler on Instagram. Those are the two platforms that I'm most social on as a human being.
Thank you. And I'll make sure to put those in the show notes. Once again, thank you for your time, Phil. I encourage everyone to dive deep into it. It will change your life because it is exactly Phil's intent. And it has helped me in every positive way and ways I can't even begin to count. So thank you very much for your time and sharing your expertise.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.